All right, so this is the third video for the 221 lab for this week. Now we're going to do where it is the image of an object located. The introductory video went through this, but I'm going to go through it again a little more carefully. And again, the one big difference on this one is I'm going to talk a little bit about how you would do an object that has size. You'll notice our previous ones had little X's as dots. Now here I'm using an arrow to represent the difference between the tail of it and the tip of this particular object. So where would the image of this particular object be? So it's the same idea that we did before, that I'm going to take a ray and have it come off of the tip. All right, and again, I have to draw my normal line. So I'm going to try to make this as perpendicular as I can. There's the normal line. And again, I'm going to use this technique of using the ruler, which I honestly find a little bit easier to do. And so if I go over, there's 10, 11, 12 millimeters over. And so if I go 10, 11, 12 millimeters over this way, I have my similar triangles. And so there's the outgoing ray. And again, if my eye is up here collecting this light, it's going to think it traveled on a straight path. And so I need to draw the virtual path of the light behind the mirror that my eye came in on. Okay. Now, as I hope you have learned at this point, that to know exactly where this tip of the arrow, this object, will appear, I need at least two rays. So I'm going to send off a second ray. And again, these don't have to be, particularly close together. In fact, I encourage you to make them a little bit apart so that it's easier to see. So there is, again, the incoming ray. There is the normal that I'm trying to measure to. And oops, I want to use millimeters, just a little bit more accurate. And so I'm going to go 10, 22, a smidge over. So I'm going to go to the same height there, 10, 22 over. Remember, I need to be on this same path so that the similar triangles hold. And there is the outgoing ray. And again, while I have my ruler in place, I'm going to extend it back and have it go over. And so I would imagine that it came from there. Now you'll notice I didn't do a perfect job, because if you think back to what you learned about plane mirrors, in principle this object should be as far behind the mirror as it is in front. So I'm going to encourage you in this particular part of the lab to practice once and then try to do a little bit better than I did right here and get it a little bit more accurate. Now, if I want to know where the tail is, I would do the same thing. I would send out two rays. Now I could send a ray this way. Remember, that's fair game too. And I could then figure out where the tail is and draw my image. So do these carefully the best you can. Try to use a colored pencil if you can. And you should get a pretty good and pretty close. This is good practice for you for your upcoming exams as well. One last tip. There will be a question that I'll ask you, where can you see the whole pencil? If you think back to my previous video, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to send a ray from the tip off both edges, another set of rays from the tail off both edges, and you're going to look at where those two regions overlap. I'll very much encourage you to do two different drawings. Do one to answer that question and do a second to show you where the image is. And again, to where you can see the whole pencil is you're going to look at the overlap of the two regions that of visibility. When you draw it out, I think you'll get a pretty good tip for it, but your instructor will be happy to answer any questions that you might have online. Good luck.